Um, trying to invite some wonderful people to these now. Hey, Jimmy.
Hi, hi, Molly.
How
Doing?
how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I am good. I am trying. How are you?
I'm very, very well. It's good to be back here again.
Right? I'm trying to invite Mary.
Okay.
Yes, okay. I just invited her right now to the
How
comments.
has been your day?
Oh, it's been busy. It's been busy, but good. I can't complain.
Mary
Yeah.
is on the call.
Hello. Hi,
Hey,
Jimmy. Hi,
Hi.
Mole.
hi, hi. How are you?
Hi.
How are you,
Good. Thank
Mary?
you. How are you both?
Doing good.
Awesome.
For fun fact, you won't believe the three of us have something very much in common. Apart from multiple things we have in common, like
Okay.
we're all in HR, we're
Mm-hmm.
all in Canada. But interestingly, the
I
three of
want
us
that
have.
wild guess. I want that to take a wild guess.
Yes, thank you. Can you take a wild guess? What else do you think the three of us have in
I
common?
bet she won't.
She may.
Did Jimmy serve in Kebbi too?
Yeah. Uh,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Oh my
right.
gosh.
Jimmy
That's so
served in
good.
Kirby,
Wow.
but she served in Dakin Gary, not like us that served in Brini Kirby.
In Bernie
I
Kebbi, right?
don't rub it in.
No, we served in the upper echelon of
Well,
place.
Yeah, you're right. Upper echelon.
We served in the Lagos. Why you served in the?
Mama, okay. Thank God we're all here today.
No, yeah,
Right,
no, yeah,
right.
we can't complain. I mean, so nice. And I mean, if you're just joining us, this is really our Luminous Fire Chat, and the whole idea is to, bring in some contemporary HR related, workplace related issues or workplace related concepts, and of course, demystify it or break it down. And we're just really having a chat. And my name is Imole Ayo, and we have two wonderful people here joining me, and two beautiful ladies. I'm just surrounded by the multiple. And so we have, I used to call her Tosin, but she's Mary. Mary is an HR professional. She works with Suncor as an HR professional. Suncor is one of the big oil and gas firms in Canada, just in case you don't know. So she's chopping money. And
Disclaimer, disclaimer.
disclaimer, wow.
I can't
But
hear you, Jimmy. Seems like you're cutting out.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I said
it's better
we connect right after this call.
please
now. Sure,
do. Please.
sure.
And she's
Very
also in
happy
the
to.
she's also in the talent management space. So
Oh,
she can help you listening here or
Oh,
help you
oh
watching,
wow.
to get a desired job in that space.
nice.
So yes, and of course we have in the house our own very own Jumoke. Fatoki Jumoke, of course, is one of our strategic members in Luminous. So today we're looking at you guys are very welcome. It's good to have this conversation.
Thank
You
Good
know,
to be here.
we're looking at managing multi-generational workforce, right? I mean, things are different now. I mean, any organization who does not understand, or any HR professional or manager who do not understand that the way you manage a baby boomer is different from the way you manage a Gen Z or a millennial. They're totally different. So maybe I just flip it to you guys. Who wants to talk to us about the various generations? Or do you want to group it so that people watching can have an idea of
you. Okay.
what this generation is?
I could start the conversation. So
Yes.
in very interesting times,
Mm-hmm.
the workplace is not the way we used to have it. From my own count, I think we have like 4 different generations in the workforce, right? We
Yeah.
have the baby boomers, we have the Gen Y, we have the Gen Z,
Mm.
popularly, and of course we have the millennials, as well. workplace. So I feel like the bulk of it looks like a chaotic kind of environment because if you think about these 4 different generations, different languages, in terms of communication, and in whatever angle you want to look at it, the way they want to be represented, or the way they bring on their value in the workplace is just different. So we need to understand the uniqueness, of each of the generations in the workforce to be able to create an harmony instead of a chaotic or a more environment that this potentially speaks to. Yeah.
Sounds good. Mary, you want to chime in?
Yeah. In addition, I just want to say that also with looking at the direction of, so with organizations generally, we want to be forward thinking, want to be prepared for the future, right? And so even looking at things that way, we're approaching, even from next year, or maybe even from now, a sort of like handover of power in the
Mm.
generations. So we're going to
Oh,
be seeing more millennials go into leadership positions, and we're going to be seeing the higher generations start to leave the organization. And so it's even more crucial now than ever that organizations become more adept and more up to speed with managing multi-generational workforces, because if you happen to be in an organization that's not very agile
yes.
and you've not paid attention to this, you're in for trouble because the people you ignored are going to be in leadership positions very
That's so
soon.
true. That's
So,
so
so
true.
that's a huge point also to speak
Oh,
about in addition to what
wow.
Jimmy said. Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, very interesting perspective that I didn't really think about. But that's the truth. There's going to be a generational shift of power.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about it really that a lot of my colleagues or some of people back home and we did stuff together,
Mm-hmm.
many of them are taking leadership positions and
Exactly.
you know, yeah. So, but I wanted to just group it a bit. So, I mean, just for knowledge sake. So the baby boomers are the guys born from 1946 to 1964. The baby boomers. That's after the war. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? And the research says that they value stability, they value hard work, they like face-to-face communication. Meaning, all these they are the ones that are against remote work. Or the truth.
Don't forget your line of thought, but I think that this point that you just touched on, there's this smiley or sticker I was making the rounds one time about a particular man looking very big, and he had very big trousers, and they
Mm-hmm.
put when your supervisor is a baby boomer, you
Yes.
can't go for it.
You
And
can.
we could relate, with that particular
Mm-hmm.
post, because that picture,
Mm.
that they presented like that of a baby boomer, and it explains.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all know why they would prefer to have, everything real time as against, working from home, where they cannot really be sure, whether you are
You're
doing what
doing
you
it
claim.
What's right?
or not. Yes. Then you have the Generation X. Those ones born between 1965 and 1980. Independent, resourceful, value work-life balance, prefer direct and clear communication. They're adaptable to both traditional and digital communications, right? So some of us have bosses like that. I remember before COVID, just right before COVID in 2020, where because some of the work I did was project work, even though I was in HR, designing policies and all of that. I was discussing with my boss, and she was open to me working once in a week from
Mm-hmm.
home and all of that before COVID. Our guy was saying no, nothing like that. It was difficult for him to, but my boss was open because she's obviously Gen X. So you see that they're millennials. I'm sure. The three of us here are millennials. I'm a millennial. 1982,
I
1981.
identify as a Gen Z,
You
by the
identify as a
way.
Gen Z. I like that. You identify as a Gen Z,
Right.
as I am. I'm identifying as a billionaire as well. So the Gen Z are the 1981 to 1996. Tech savvy, value flexibility and purpose in work, favor collaboration, digital communication, seek feedback and career development opportunities. Right? I can associate and relate with that. And then the Gen Z, 1997 to 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Digital natives value individuality and on social issues, prefer fast and visual communication, aka social media, and desire stability as well as opportunity for growth. So
Mm-hmm.
let me hear from your experience. which of this category or this generation of people have you managed or worked with before that you find most exciting and most challenging?
I think I've worked with all four.
Okay.
I have managed, maybe not a boomer, but a Gen X for sure.
Yeah.
And I won't say that anyone is more difficult or more challenging to
Mm.
manage. I'll just say they're very different. And, going back to our topic,
Mm.
it really is hard. Let's face it. It's tough to be to have to manage a multi-generational workforce. It's tough to
Yeah.
draw strategies to manage it, to educate and even have organizational learning
Mhm.
to make sure that we're positioned to manage it,
Mm.
right? But I think the most interesting group for me are the Gen Z, which I identify as part of, um, and how I had to quickly adjust as a manager myself
Mm.
in relating with them.
Yeah.
How they don't like you being in their face and they don't
Yeah.
want to be in your face all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
How, they're not really formal or official in their communication.
Mm.
It's a hi, should I do this? Yes. They want you to be crystal clear. They don't have time to read lengthy notes. Like they're not really, things need to be short, punchy, straight to the point,
Yeah.
you know. And I guess the biggest part for me was being so where I had other generations be very official in their communication. Um, so Ma, we have to do this, or Tosin, we have to do this, and blah blah blah. Do I have your approval to go forward? And my Gen Z is like, I've done this and this and this. Let me know if you have any object. I'm like,
Mm.
you didn't think to ask me,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
So just understanding what the what the peculiar characteristics and how they react in situations was I had to adjust pretty quickly to that.
So
Mhm.
you have to be the one that adjusted.
Yes, as the manager, yes, or else I would be very stressed.
Mm.
I had to, there's definitely some learning that I had to do for sure.
Yeah.
For
Uh,
sure, especially because I had a different spread. And so I quickly realized after the Gen Z joined my team that
mm.
managing them like I was managing the rest of the team was not going to work. It was not going to
Abs-
work.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'll
Mhm.
come to you, Jimmy, but Kenny, thanks for joining. She said their needs and approaches are different.
Absolutely.
And that is so true. So, Jimmy, you want to chime into that? How did you?
Yes, yes, yes. So I have my share of experience with Gen Zs, but I'd like to flip this a bit to talk about the baby boomers.
Okay.
Um, and this is my personal experience. The organization I work for, in an attempt of manage this multi-generational workforce that we're talking about, introduced concepts that they called reverse mentoring, where
Oh, okay.
millennials like me, yeah, could mentor. So they paired me up with somebody at the time, she, like the managing director of one of the big subsidiaries. It was a group of companies back home, and I was paired to mentor her in the area of technology. Of course, this person has an executive presence. She could represent the company, different other things. She could mentor me on so many. But when it comes to technology, of course, as a baby boomer,
Yeah.
something that doesn't come natural with them. I like to call them the digital nomads,
No.
not some
Yeah.
of us who are the digital natives. So I handheld in something as little as knowing how to post, on Instagram. And she had tons of ideas, amazing things, she wanted to share out there. And and she had all of the technology. Of course, she can afford it. But, knowing how to use them was a challenge. And so we didn't sort of make it only about work, work, work. We integrated it into, so many other aspects of life. And it was something that we both look forward to, during the time that we set to meet. And I'll show her, how you create your post, compose it, how you share, how you tag. And you have no idea, how that relationship blossomed. I have since, moved on from that organization, and we still have a relationship ongoing. It
Wow.
was better during that process. So I think that was one key thing that I learned, and I'm also willing to implement, when I get the opportunity.
That's really
Beautiful.
interesting. Sorry,
That's
Molly, I just wanted to ask a question, and that's really interesting. So you mentioned that that was like an organization-wide thing. So just wondering,
Yes.
how was it? was it received well by all the boomers?
Fantastic
And
question.
if there were any resistance, can you share with
Yeah.
us what their worries were, concerns
Yeah.
were?
You could be sure that baby boomers are kickback. Like, what you what do you guys mean? So we had to use those whose receptions were better to sort of reach out to others who were a bit conservative about it. So the likes of my own the person that I was paired with was able to share our experience and show them some of the things she's been able to do. Again, we had to use her to communicate to them, to
Okay.
accept, to come, to the acceptance of this. And of course, we didn't get everybody to buy into the idea, but we were able to get a good number, to get into it. When one of them was able to speak to the fact that these are the benefits, that the advantages, that I've been able to glean by working with this millennial that was being paired with, others got encouraged, and that's how we're able.
That's a good question, to say, Mary, but that's a concept I would like to explore. Reverse mentorship, where
Yeah.
you bring in, somebody of a different generation to mentor a baby boomer.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. But I think
Really?
I had that strategy of having a sponsor amongst the baby boomers
Mm-hmm.
who will speak about it.
Yeah.
Um, but I believe that the organizational culture must be strong enough for them to even consider to adopt
Yeah.
that kind of strategy.
Yes. It was a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
conversation that was very big on culture. We're
Okay.
already all kinds of things, regarding culture in the organization, different meetings, different initiatives being rolled out,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
one of them, yeah.
That's
That's
awesome.
that's fun. Mary, when Mary was talking, you really talked about the communication styles of different,
Mm-hmm.
especially for
Mm-hmm.
Gen Z. Do we
Mm-hmm.
want to explore what are the talking about communication styles for another generation? Can
Yeah.
we explore that? What do you find to be most effective, and how do we balance it?
Okay, so that's a good question. So, what I found in organizations that I've worked at, and maybe I should just put a disclaimer out there to say that my opinions on this call are strictly my opinions and are not not representative of the opinions of Suncor or
Yeah,
Suncor's views on anything.
yeah,
So just to put that out there.
yeah.
But in some of the organizations I've worked with, really, with regards to communication, there's really not a one style fits
Size fits
all.
all. Yeah.
And I found that the best communication strategies are those that are diverse, that appeal, that are in different ways. You use different methods.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. So where you have like maybe an employee call, for example, maybe the CEO wants to communicate something to all the employees in the organization. Of course, the age that we're in now, that's going to be a digital call because
Yeah.
maybe you have employees across countries, across cities, but there are some people who like the in-face. And so you can, in the different locations, meeting rooms are also booked as well to say, if you want to come join us and let's log on the call together. So you'll
Yeah.
have people around you, and so you still have that feel
That
like you are in
sets
a
up.
meeting. Exactly. There's
Hmm.
people around. You can relate with people, chat with someone beside you,
Hmm.
right? So there'll be meeting rooms booked in each of those different locations so we can watch it together. If you want to do it at your desk, that's fine. And if you're a Gen Z and you want to watch the recording later on your own time, on demand, it will also be recorded and you'll also have access to it. So that's one of the ways we can make communication like really accessible to different groups. We're still passing that message, right? Um, when it comes to managers dealing with these generations, for me, I feel that a lot of the times it needs to start with an organization learning. It really needs to start with that. And this is
Sure.
the organization, like Jimmy said about the organization she worked at, being big on culture and driving these
Yeah.
things. You know, making leaders aware that we have this workforce, providing them that data so that they can understand their teams better,
Sure.
understand how best to understand what the team is made up of, and being able to best address them. I
Hmm.
feel it has to start with the organization. I will always go back to
Yeah.
that. Yes, managers have first line of responsibility, but it
Mhm.
always starts with the organization.
Totally agree with you. I'm going to come to you soon, Jimmy. But really, I've worked with organizations where that organizational learning I mean, it came not just from a training. For instance, we do what we call psychometric assessment, right? You know, we did a couple of different ones, you know, from a color perspective, the management style. But I found one thing I found interesting, speaking to what you said, is when we group based on these multi-generational dimensions. You know, the way the baby boomer likes to be spoken to or talked to is different from the way Gen Z wants to be spoken.
Absolutely.
And that knowledge empowers the manager to know that, hey, if this guy does not respond to your text right now, he's not ignoring you, but
Just not the right time.
is not, yes. Some persons find it hard
Right.
to navigate that. They find it hard to even conceive that. How are you not even speaking to me this way? Right? How you not, you know, it becomes difficult. Another key thing I found for the Gen Z, bringing in a lot of personal, they take so many things personal. So their work, I mean, sometimes they treat it as a relationship. If it's not working, instead of fixing it, they're replacing it.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
the baby boomers are like, will leave the organization when the factory closes. But
Exactly.
millennials like us and this other generation, they're like, hey, if the manager talks to me this way, I'm jumping ship. Or if I'm not feeling this social inclusion, or you guys are not even digital, they are jumping ship. So these are some of the multi-generational dimensions managers who want to be effective and organizations, like you said, must really be aware of. Jimmy, you want to share your own perspective?
Yes. So as you both were speaking, I was trying to, because I relate a lot with examples. So I was trying to again, refresh my memory as to some of the examples that can corroborate this story. And I recall also a time when, speaking of this multi-generational workforce, something as little as music policy, in the organization. The millennials, of course, the Gen Zs, wanted an environment where they could play music, and then do their work.
Or bring their dogs.
Exactly, well, it gives them the right energy they need to get their job done. But of course, we have baby boomers put back against that to say that is disturbing for them. They need their pets, to be able to function appropriately. And we had to find a middle ground, in that situation. We had to engage, the different buckets of people in the organization. And at some point, we even had to take a survey so that we can have like a data-driven information, not just making it look like HR, just in post. And of course, we also did a lot of communication in the sense that we needed to accommodate one another. Yes, it's an organization, all working towards one purpose. If you like it this way, the other person likes it that way. We need to reach middle ground so that we can all, be happy and yet get the work done. And you want to guess what the middle ground was? We agreed that, okay, so no music up until after lunch, and so the baby boomers could have, that time in the morning. The moment, after lunch, people can turn on their music. Of course, low level, we have some policies and procedures, of course, to control, or at least we're able to reach a middle ground, and everyone, was excited about it at the end of the day.
Really good one. Really good.
That's a good one. I
Really
mean,
good.
that's a good one. And I appreciate you ladies' perspective. It really shows global perspective in terms of best practice in managing multi-generational environment. I mean, if you are not exposed in these dimensions, you only work with what you know. And most times it's the traditional way of doing things. Not knowing the knowledge of all these various dimensions helps you accommodate, right?
Absolutely.
Helps you really understand that, okay, hold on. Where's this person coming from? Why are they asking this? What is, I mean, in fact, it now speaks to various dimensions of our strategic initiatives, from how we design our training, how we structure our compensation, the career pathing, what does it look like? How we even recruit our talent, especially how we even, our leaders, how do we even position our leaders to be able to effectively manage these teams? And I find that to be critical. Let's talk about career, career development for these various generations. What do we think is most effective or important to various generations? You can pick any of those and then we go from there.
Yeah, so of course, I think that for the Gen Z, relevance to now is most important for them. Like if something is not really impactful in there now, they're not really much savers for the future. It's almost like the same thing that in how they view compensation. Like if you want to give if you have a compensation system that rewards the future, so maybe long term, like if you wait 5 years, then you're qualified for an RSU or you qualify for this, you're gonna lose a Gen Z because they're not really interested in future whatever. They want it now. So same thing with development. If you're talking about development, it has to be relevant in the now to them because 5 years from now they could be in a completely different career. That's how they are. They're not sticking to anything for too long, right? As opposed to like the older generations where you can, for the boomers, for example, Gen X, you can actually you can vet those options, and they want to prove their loyalty to you, right? For millennials, for example, which is you and Jimmy's group there. If there's no growth opportunities, if you don't see a goal to where you're working towards, if you don't see opportunity for you to move upwards, for value to be assigned or attributed to your work, you're looking for a way out. You're looking for somewhere that's going to give you that value. Yeah. So I don't want to go into details for like all the other generations, but I have found like the best development or career development strategies that work well are the ones that are employee-led. They're should I say employee-led or employee-initiated, where you give the employee room to say, this is where I want to go, this is what I see as my future or my career growth path, and the leaders can help guide in line with company policies, talent strategies, and stuff like that, and help hone and guide that career path. But where you have these one method fits all,
you're in
it's
trouble.
it's not gonna work.
Fantastic. That was very sound and apt. Thank you, Mary. Jimmy, what's your view? Career path leader.
So not very different from Mary's experience. They are the generation that are asking to get me involved. Don't just land something on my table. I be involved because for most work is beyond pay, like it was in the time of the older
the boomers.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Call it. It's what it is, right?
Work has to be meaningful.
Meaningful work.
I have seen people who join organizations. Speaking of the millennials and the Gen Zs who joined the organization because of their values, because of their mission, because of their involvement in different CSR activities, and they can see from those CSR activities, things that aligns with their personal values,
yes.
Their own purpose in life. And that's the one reason why they have decided to join, the organization in the first place. So when we're then talking about career development, they also want something in line. They do not want to deviate, like we have said. So it's very, very critical, just not to repeat what Mary has said, carry them along as much as possible. And you can be sure to get the best out of them that way, as against just dropping laps. They won't do it, you can be sure.
I love that. Very, very sound, very apt. And that's the truth, right? When it comes to a millennial perspective, you can't do one size fits all. So I think a critical aspect is to mix it, right? You mix it from a learning perspective. There's online courses, there's micro learning, and even mix it with mentorship. I really love that idea you brought up that it's operational in your organization in terms of reverse mentoring, right? But maybe, just this is me saying, maybe we don't bring just me thinking, and it could be my stereotyping in my head. Maybe we don't bring a Gen Z to mentor a baby boomer. Maybe a millennial can mentor that reverse mentoring before you get into trouble, because a Gen Z lacks the patience. Most Gen Z lacks the patience of, and then a baby boomer or a millennial actually wants that process, one step by step, and so that's part of the balance. But I love the perspective we've shared, especially from a career development. We give them opportunities, give them options, make them know that we're not just dumping it on you. If you have to be a great manager, that has to be an option. Let's quickly talk about the last dimension that's in my head. That's inclusion. How do we tie all of this up to ensure that it's an inclusive culture. Right? Yes, that would be a disaster if you do one size fits all. I agree with you,
Yeah.
Mr. Dora. Right? But how do we ensure inclusive culture? And I also want us to look at the angle of the managers. Right? How do we help managers who are not really aware of the weight of these things and are still living in their bubble? So it's two questions I want us to play around. Right? The manager. What are the key strategies we can share with managers to be solid? Then of course, maybe before then, how do we create a very inclusive culture where all these multi-generations thrive, all of us show up with our whole self, all of us feel empowered to deliver excellently in the organization?
Okay, if I could chime in there,
Sure.
looking at, I think one of the things that concerns me the most with organizations now is how they seem to be, and I don't want to be generalistic,
Yeah.
it's like there's no awareness or recognition of the fact that this is happening. It's almost like these changes are happening and they're affecting the workforce, but no one seems to be talking, to be acting on the talk, if you
Right.
understand what I mean. We see organizations taking bold steps with regards to diversity, with regards to social responsibility, but you don't necessarily see a lot of action behind managing this diversity when it comes to multi-generational stuff, right? And first is just I just a call, to say organizations, we need to wake up. Now I know that we have CEOs who are still, in
Slumbering.
the yeah, no, CEOs is still in the maybe boomer or whatever ages for a lot of the companies that are big companies, but we need to start to see that power shift is coming, and start to become aware of it. It will feed into not only our talent and people strategies, it would also feed into the strategies of the organization itself,
Oh,
the
yeah.
causes that we're involved in, our social responsibility, because those things matter to the generation that you're going to be hiring in your workforce. It
That's true.
matters to the Gen Z, right? So
Yes.
now that's just the first call. Second point I do want to make is I don't feel like, and I just want to make clear on the call that not one generation is better than the other. They have their strengths, they have their opportunities. Each of those
Opportunity.
generations, they matter, in
Yeah.
the workforce. So just want to put
Organizations.
that out there.
That's
So
how.
with that in mind, I think enabling the managers to manage properly a workforce, a multi-generational workforce, starts with the organization. First, let's provide them the data.
Leadership.
Honestly, you can't really assume people's ages.
No.
You can't really assume. And
And you
you
can't
may
even
have
ask.
you can
I mean, in this
ask.
part of the world, how are you asking for my age,
You
right?
can ask, and there are outliers too. There's some people
Yes.
who fall within those generation age-wise, but don't fall their personality or
It's
type-wise.
different.
Do you understand? Reality-wise, right? So let's provide them that data. That's the first one. Second one, let's advise on what we want that data to do for them.
Oh.
And this is where having that organizational outlook and learning comes into place. What's our stand as an organization when it comes to managing a multi-generational workforce?
True.
Are we really focused on being flexible and adaptable? Are we really focused on being inclusive?
Yeah.
Does it matter to us to have our older generation here? They hold the knowledge, they hold historical knowledge that's good for us.
Yeah.
Does it matter for us to have our Gen Z? Well, they hold futuristic potential
Oh
for us.
yeah.
So, so
Where are the millennials? Sorry, none of these. because
leadership,
you're getting like
leadership.
this, Mary. Where are we?
No, but leadership, even
It,
starting next year, even right now, you can see a lot of millennials going into leadership positions.
yeah,
Those are your next generation, like immediate generation leaders, right?
that's true.
So having that outlook and understanding awareness of the organization and creating from the organizational level that learning and strategy will help managers drill down and be able to directly manage that workforce. I don't want to talk too much because I know
Yeah.
Jimmy has some great points to share.
Nice one, nice one. Jimmy, go for it. Okay, I think
Oh,
Jimmy's network is
did we lose her there or?
yeah, you can see it. Okay, I'm sure she's gonna join us, but you capture some very important salient points there. You can't that power shift. One key question or thought that always comes to mind is, are the baby boomers or are the leadership really preparing for this power shift? Did you understand it? So Canada, for instance, when you look at it from a general perspective, they understand that in 2025, one out of every 3 person in the workplace will be retiring. They've been at retired stage. So they started working and started bringing young talent, the Gen Zs and millennials into the country so that they fill that labor pool and all of that.
Right.
But at the organizational level, is that happening? And that's some of the things you've spoken to, to ensure that that balance is happening. I hope Jimmy can come back to join us. Okay, I have invited her. Let's hope she can come back to join us in a couple of minutes. But if there are, what would be your parting statement? What do you think should stand out in the mind of people watching this or will watch it later when it comes to managing multi-generational? Okay, before you answer that, Dora says succession planning is very important. Yes, succession planning is very important, especially if it's well structured based on strategic initiative, future thinking, and a learning organization, right? And a learning organization is not just doing training once in a while. It's who they are. They're constantly on learning, assessing their bias, opening up to new realities and aligning the organization, right? It's a fact. Either you like it or yes, the world has changed, right? Oh, you mentioned a point I wanted to drive on in terms of our sustainability goals. I think that's important, right? I've interviewed a lot of Gen Zs or even millennials. They are asking, hey, they're saying, we love your social responsibility projects.
Exactly.
We love that you're trying to manage water. We love that you're investing in this. If you don't understand that, and if not part of the strategic imperative on the table of the CEO, your organization is not going to sustain the next generation. You can't function. Because the reality is these projects, these initiatives are driving factor for a whole generation that's critical to the survival of the organization. Right? And so I love the fact that you brought that up. Succession planning, critical. Jimmy, you're welcome back. Give us a round of statement or thoughts as to this conversation.
Thank you. Very interesting line of thought from Mary there before I got the technical
glitch.
So I wanted to also say two things from the talent acquisition angle now. So the question was around how we can be inclusive, as an organization. And I wanted to say that even in the way we advertise, our jobs, the languages that we choose to use, the pictorial images, that we have, it can sometimes we don't know these things, but everything is place. You only want a particular set of people in place. So we need to be very intentional and very, detail oriented, even to the points of those little materials, that speaks or represents us out there. And I was also going to mention projects. If we work in organizations, that also gets that I've worked in an organization where, not as part of your core responsibility, but there are ongoing projects that people can take on as developmental initiatives. We can be very intentional in that angle as well to pair up, different generations together, to work together and get, the learning they are able to derive from working together on a project. Sometimes people are able to bring it into their core work responsibilities, and then it eases conversations and helps the work, to flow better. That's the bit that I wanted to add to it before Mary.
Very, very great point. Thanks for sharing. You guys have been amazing, and I hope this conversation has been helpful to a lot of persons. So Dora says, I have a question. Okay, let's quickly go through that. How can one create opportunities and reverse mentorship to facilitate knowledge transfer and skill development across generations and as an ongoing succession plan strategy? That is a fantastic question. Jimmy, do you want to take that and then let's get married? Let's do that in 1 minute.
Okay, so I don't know if this person was on the call when I shared that experience. Yes. So this is something that is very possible. An organization can build a whole strategy around this, but there has to be a lot of buy-in, before you go ahead. You need to sit with the baby boomers and you need to sit with them, differently and get everybody to understand the rationale, the reason why you are making, you're going in this line. And once that communication bit is sorted, I can assure you that, distilling that strategy is going to become easy. You would have people become receptive of it. I shared, something about how the baby boomers sort of kicked back against, or were not really, they didn't fully accept the reverse mentoring idea, of course, for reasons we all understand.
Yes.
But we have to get of them in the room to be the voice, and I think Imole captured it better. The sponsor, who was able to get other people to understand the rationale, communicate in a language that they can also understand, and then other people, they were able to embrace the reverse mentoring idea. Yeah, that's something you could do.
Solid. Mary, you want to chime in one or two things there?
Yeah, Jimmy said most of it, but just to speak to the portion that, so with regards to reverse mentorship, there's the bit where it's like an organizational learning strategy,
Yeah.
To just enable the organization learn, like Imole said, to be continually learning. But with regards to your question, you talked about succession planning, which is pretty targeted. So with succession planning, you're targeted at either certain roles, or you're using your talent grid to move identify talents up the career path. In those situations, I think that would naturally sell itself, because you can easily explain to the candidate or to the employee what's in it for them. You can clearly see that because it's succession planning, right? But however, with regards to what Jimmy said, I think Jimmy just nailed it perfectly. It has to be an organizational strategy first. It needs to start there first, because if there's no buy-in, it'll go nowhere. So if it's an organizational strategy, test it out, find a sponsor. If someone thinks it's great, most likely more people will think it's great. So just using basically your chain management strategies.
That's the word.
Yeah, find a sponsor, get them to spread the word, and before you know it, Bob's your uncle.
Amazing. You took that word out of my mouth, and it really is being clear, right? It's a journey of taking you from current state to the future state. Be clear about what the future state looks like, and of course, understand all the key players, the stakeholders, and that word you also said is critical. What is the need for me, especially the millennials and Gen Zs? Everybody really wants to know what's in need for me. So if you have a succession plan strategy process in place, and you're putting me in a succession plan, number one, let me know about it. Number two, all of the development style processes, let it be clear. If you're doing reverse mentorship, let every other person be clear. So, and of course, bring in all the key aspects of the sponsor, of the chain champion, and of course, evaluating all of this so that you can iterate. It's never one size fits all. Then another key thing I want to just quickly capture there is your culture goes a long way to determine whichever strategy will survive. Like they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you want to implement any of these strategies, especially in a multi-generational workforce, you have to make sure you have the right culture. And what are we talking about? What's culture? Culture is simply how we do things here, right? So a multi-generational organization, a culture of inclusion is critical.
Absolutely.
Everybody must feel included. And these wonderful people have talked about various dimensions of inclusion, culture of adaptability, culture of clear-cut career pathing. A Gen Z wants to know what's next for me. If he doesn't know, he's jumping in the shift. He's jumping ship to the next place. It doesn't matter, right? Culture of inclusion, culture of engagement, and all of these various aspects is critical when you're managing.
Pardon me, this is the
Please.
one that keeps ringing in my head, and that's feedback. Real-time feedback. Because you just want real-time feedback. You're going to wait, until one period is over before you start telling them what they didn't. You have to be intentional. You have to give that feedback right and on time. And I think that's also, one key thing that is crucial in this conversation.
Fantastic.
Yeah, sorry if I could just add one more thing.
Yes, please.
Again, just to stress, all of these generations are important. All of these generations, they bring their own flair, their own strengths to the workplace. And so any organization that will thrive in the future will be one that's able to glean its best from all of these generations. Same with the manager. I've talked about the organizations giving the enabling environment and the support to the manager to be able to manage properly.
Yep.
But even you as a manager, you have the responsibility to adapt, to learn, to know your people, to better manage them, to be aware that you have a multi-generational workforce, and that all of them make the workforce, right? They actually make the workforce. So just wanted to put that in as well.
I love this. Thank you, ladies. I guess if I'm going to part with any final word, is the fact that any manager that must excel in this generation must function as a coach, must wear the hat of a coach. You're not micromanaging. You're not just directing people to do what they need to do. You need to wear the hat of a coach, and a coach understands. A coach is aware, and a coach works with you as you journey. He knows how to pair up. He knows how to evaluate. He knows how to ask questions that are leading, of course, to even sometimes you finding the solutions. And then, of course, that awareness helps you manage, adopt different skills when you're managing different generations. So I think it's been a fantastic conversation. You ladies have been amazing. Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you so much for sharing out today.
Thank you, Coach. It was really great to be here.
Yes, it was. I had fun. I had fun. I hope when we knock on your door again, you'll be there to show up, because this is really exciting. All right, we will be going now. Once again, thank you so much to Jumoke, and thank you so much to you, Mary, Tosin, Mary. You guys have been amazing. Yes, you've been amazing. I mean, my name again remains Imole, and of course, I represent Luminous, like Jimmy as well. We will keep showing up every week here to bring you valuable insights in the world of work, in the world of HR, and in the world of global domination, as we support, as we put in system structures and framework so that organizations will win. Because when organizations are winning in the marketplace, we are winning, right? We are winning. So again, Dora says, as HR professionals, how do you ensure equity when a millennial is better positioned for a role than a baby boomer? That'll be a conversation for another day, or we will respond to you. But yes, Dora, thank you for your being active and asking very engaging questions. We appreciate you, but we have to go right now. We've exceeded our time a bit, but then again, it's been an amazing time. We will see you again and again. And make sure you enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
Yeah, bye now.
Bye.
And bye, Mary.
Bye, Jimmy.
All right, guys. Ciao.